Hello, this is Nitin Dahad, and welcome to this latest edition of Silicon Grapevine. Today, my guest is Ritu Favre, who's the president of the Test and Measurement Division of Emerson, or better known as NI. Ritu, hello, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It's been a challenge getting you, but hopefully we have a great conversation. So tell me, Ritu, just tell me a little bit about your background. How did you get into electronics?
Oh, absolutely. So I was always very curious about math and science. I grew up in a very Indian household. And so for us, it was very much engineering, academics, math and science. So from the time I was 8 years old, I decided I wanted to be an engineer.
Well, is that somebody inspired you? Or
My father is a civil engineer. Okay. Went to school at MIT, became a professor in engineering. So wasn't exactly sure what engineers did at 8, but I decided that's what I was going to do.
That's pretty early to know what you want to do.
Yes.
Were there any interesting projects you got involved in at 8 years old?
No, not at all. I literally was, I was in 3rd grade and I loved math and science, always loved math and science, was very good at math and science. And then kind of fast forwarding, I finished high school when I was 15. My dad taught at Arizona State. And so I went to Arizona State and I went into electrical engineering. And that was where I basically got my love for electronics. So as I went into that, I went into a lot of semiconductor physics.
Right.
It was just amazing. I loved it.
Oh, that's the real opposite to me. When I was doing semiconductor physics, I got bored.
I got an A in electromagnetics,
okay.
And my teacher was like, "You're a genius." And I literally was RF, semiconductors, loved all of it.
Ideal student, ideal daughter. So like in your family, were you like with your siblings, were you the only engineer or?
So I'm the oldest of 3. I'm a engineer by training, and then of course I run NI now. My sister is an industrial engineer, and she's a vice president at a tech company, and my brother is a medical doctor.
Okay, so I mean very highly regarded roles, I guess. But
yes.
In terms of then like you studying, what are the things that like you really enjoyed? You said you're semiconductor physics, but what were the things that then got you into your first role, and what did you enjoy?
Yeah, so I'm probably somewhat atypical, but I just love solving equations or everything about math and physics. I just loved it.
You were the ideal child.
Well, I was so fascinated by everything, Maxwell's equations and all electromagnetics. I absolutely loved it. And so I have a master's in semiconductor physics. Again, my father has 5 PhDs, so I was quite the not ideal because I did not go and get a PhD.
Right.
So I graduated when I was 18 with my bachelor's and went to Motorola Semiconductor.
That's right.
And that's where I completely fell in love with all of it. I was in a bunny suit. I was in the wafer fab. It was going quickly all the time. It was high paced, high stress. And that was just incredible to me.
That was the era when they were just starting to develop mobile phones,
No,
that was before that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a little bit older than that.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I started at Motorola in 1988.
Okay.
And so we were probably 10, 15 years away from any kind of mobile phones. But we were making a lot of chips for cars, a lot of chips for computers at that time. And so I just fell in love with being in this operations environment. I'd never been in a manufacturing kind of an environment. And just learned a ton from the very, very beginning.
1988, I roles reversed. I was working in a test and measurement company.
Oh, wow.
Which made everything, from the ATE to the signal generators to the spectrum analyzers. So it's kind of like...
I ended up there and you started there.
Yeah, it's interesting how lives progress. But Motorola, but then you kind of evolved with that, the Freescale, and then you went to what?
Synaptics.
Tell me, like, you got that first job at Motorola. How did you get that? I think I just...
So they had a program at that time. So I went to Arizona State, and Motorola was the biggest employer in the state. And so there was a very big kind of academic, private sector partnership. And so Motorola would actually do a lot of the coursework, or they would help create the curriculum at Arizona State.
Okay. Yeah.
And so there was a lot of recruiting from Arizona State. And so Motorola had something called an engineering rotation program.
Right.
And so they would start 20 students every year. And so I ended up getting into their rotation program I started there again in 1988. So in their June cohort, I had 20 other people that started with me. We were all double E's coming straight out of college. And so started there in this rotation program.
Very good. How long did you spend at Motorola then? And
So I was at Motorola for 25 years. So I ended up progressing through a lot of different roles. And the thing that I found is I was always very curious about how everything worked. So I learned a lot about the wafer fab and how that worked. Went from that, I started to progress in management. And so what was a big dichotomy for me is I was this very academic, theoretical, ended up in this device physics kind of role at Motorola. Was very curious about how electric fields worked in transistors. It was all this theoretical. But somehow they decided that I had potential, which I, at that time, did not see in myself. I was 19 when I started. I was this very, very nerdy engineer.
Nerdy, but driven.
Yes, very, very driven and very curious. And so they started to say, oh, you have a lot of capability and we need to start to promote you. And I said, I don't want to get promoted. So at some point, I finally got promoted to a point where I had to make a decision about, am I going the technical path? Because Motorola had a technical ladder and a managerial ladder. And I always thought I would go on the technical ladder. I had always thought I'd go back and get a PhD. And I wanted to go sit in a cave and either do masks or design or do something that was just very solitary and work on devices. And it ended up that I started going up the management path. So to your question, I spent my first 12 years in operations roles and kind of ended up progressing kind of higher and higher. Ended up running a wafer fab, ran an assembly test factory.
By then this was Freescale, I guess.
No, not yet.
It was still Motorola.
Not yet. Yeah. So like in 1999 or 1998, that was when they split into ON Semiconductor, and they started sort of the breakup of Motorola at that time. And so I ended up moving into a business unit role at that time because a lot of manufacturing was moving offshore. And so I said, well, let me go learn the business side. And so then I started to progress up the business path. And so in, like I said, 1999, I started to go into the RF business. And then ended up doing a bunch of different general management kind of roles, product management, general management. Again, lots of different roles there. But by the time I was leaving Motorola, I was running their RF power amplifier group, reporting the CEO. And at that point, I had been at Motorola 25 years. I met my husband there, had a couple kids, the house, all the things that happen. And then made the decision that either I was going to have to move to Austin, Texas, which is another precursor of the things to come, so that I could go up through the Motorola path in Austin, because that's where they were headquartered, or I had always wanted to move to Silicon Valley. I was really, really just drawn that I wanted to be where this action was and where all of Silicon was going to be created.
All engineers that time wanted to be, even in the UK, I was at National Semiconductor.
Yes.
I wanted to be in
Silicon Valley. Yes. And so again, like, as you said, I'm pretty driven, and once I have a thing that I want to do, I'm going to go do it. And so I ended up getting a job at Synaptics. So I left Motorola.
That wasn't under Michael Hurlston, or was that before? It was before.
Synaptics was Rick Bergman when I went to go work there. And so I left Motorola, sold my house within about 6 weeks. My daughter had a dance recital. I got that done. And then we kind of packed up the cars and moved to San Jose.
It's quite interesting. You said you like Motorola pushing you for the management role. When you talk about and not stereotyping, but women in science and technology don't get those paths to management so easily.
Yeah,
and
I know.
It seems like you had a lucky break.
I had a lot of mentors in my career. And so I did not realize it at the time, because when I was much younger, it's like, oh, well, this is an equal world and everything, you
live ideal world.
Exactly. And I had, if I trace my career, there were kind of, call it advocates and people that helped me without me realizing that that was what was happening. So the person that gave me my first management role ended up giving me my second management role, and I still stay in touch with him. He ended up running TriQuint at some point. So it was something that, without realizing it, I was being sort of helped in some way as I was going up. I did realize at some point that there was a very big difference between my experience and what a lot of other people experience.
So interesting, in the industry, people talk a lot about luck and being in the right place at the right time. But also on this series that I've been doing, Silicon Grapevine, I think one of the things I've seen is mentoring plays a huge part.
Yes.
Everybody I've interviewed, all the CEOs, talk about the mentors, people they've had
Yes.
to encourage them.
Yes, yes. And for me, that was a huge part throughout my entire career. And I think somewhere in that time, probably in the late 90s, as I started getting into more senior roles, they really were asking, you need to help women. And I said, I don't have to help women. They're doing just fine. I'm fine. They're fine. It's all fine. Later, I realized how important it is. And so I do a lot of work with women in engineering. I'm in the Global Semiconductor Association, Women's Leadership Team.
Okay.
A lot of
Jodie's been on this podcast.
Oh, good.
As well.
We'll tell her I said hello. But I did realize at some point that there's a big difference between the experience that many women have in tech and the experience that men have.
When I think about this podcast, it's been very sort of male focused, but some of the ladies include Sundari Mitra. She's had a really good journey as well. Yeah, ex-Intel, NetSpeed, and
oh, good.
So there's little gems. Okay, so we'll talk about the mentoring and what you're doing in women in STEM in a minute, but Synaptics, then how did that grow you? What was then?
So Synaptics ended up being a really interesting experience because it was consumer electronics. So I went from, call it industrial. So Motorola was very automotive, industrial, RF, base stations. And so that kind of class of customers and products is very different than consumer electronics, what's in your hand phone. Yeah. And so they had just acquired a company called Validity. It's a fingerprint sensing company. Okay. And they were integrating it into Synaptics. So Synaptics did touch sensors on phones, the touch pads on the computers, and then they bought this fingerprint sensing company. And that company had a lot of things that it needed to fix, the company that they bought. So I was brought in to run that company and that integration. So I've just moved.
That's quite a good role.
It was great. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. But I basically moved out of, call it my comfort space at Motorola. I knew everybody. I'd been there for 25 years. I had a lot of credibility. I walk into this brand new company in Silicon Valley, in consumer electronics, taking a company that they had just bought, integrating it, and we had pretty much one of the largest cell phone makers in the world that were counting on us getting the sensor integrated into their phone, and it needed to work. And it was going in their phone model. That was like catch the tiger by the tail and just go. So it was.
What year was that?
2014.
So that was way after the iPhone. So yeah.
Yes. So the iPhone had just done it. Yeah. So it was the other one that had decided, okay, if they had done it, then the other had to do it. Yeah. And the reason that Synaptics ended up buying the company was that the big vendor or the big customer needed that capability in their phone. And so we did it. We got it integrated. It was like nothing I've ever been through.
Okay. And then the next move was really over here.
No. Then I went and ran my company.
Oh, okay.
So after that, I went to Next Biometrics, and then I did a fingerprint sensor for
Was that
industrial.
an evolution of what you were doing at Synaptics?
Yes, it was. So I was doing capacitive sensors for cell phones. This ended up being more for fingerprint readers. So like the Aadhaar program in India, we got designed into that.
Oh, pretty clever.
It was very, very cool.
Because that's huge.
It was very cool. And then we were looking at doing credit card fingerprint sensors. And so that was a lot of fun. It was a startup. It was 90 people. It was cash flow negative, and it was public. So it was a public company in Norway. And so I learned all about investors and funding and buy side, sell side analysts, and just doing really technical development. The head of R&D for me at NI came and worked for me there. We had to build a brand new die, a whole reference design, a credit card that could do wireless, NFC. It was a very lofty set of goals that we had. Wow. So we were able to get the company to cash flow positive. We got it to good gross margins. And I realized that the raising money, having a cash flow negative company is a lot of work on the funding and investor side. Yeah. And I've decided I like taking new technology to the market. That's what I enjoy doing, making cool products and getting them into the market.
So, it's kind of your evolution from, wanting to do the semiconductor physics to do, excel in that technology.
Yes.
And now you've got the ability to take it to market.
Yes, exactly. And that's what I realized I had some level of skill at, is being able to figure out the technology and how to get that into customers' hands.
Yeah. Just as a parallel, when I joined a startup called ARC, a microprocessor company.
Yeah, I remember that one.
So we're 18 engineers, myself and the CEO. The only thing we're running out doing funding and everything, 2 years, raised 140 million pounds, but IPO, it teaches you a lot, and you're working 24/7, so I can understand all of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so you had that exposure with National Instruments, with that testing, so I guess that's how you got the introduction into.
So NI ended up, so that was the company I ran, was called Next Biometrics. And at some point I decided that was not really where I wanted to be.
Okay.
So I was beginning to put feelers out. And then I ended up getting introduced to Eric Starkloff, who was running National Instruments at the time.
Right. Okay.
And he called and said, your background's great. I'm transforming the company into having business units. We are looking at doing ATE. And I said, why? And that was kind of the beginning of our whole discussion and negotiation. And he'll tell you this. I talked to him. I said, sounds great. Sounds like you're doing some really great things. I'm not interested. I'm going to stay with running my company. And he was incredible.
He pursued you.
He did.
Yeah.
He did. So for 5 months, he said, no, we have to meet. We got to do this. We got to talk. We need to get this done. So in May of 2019, I said yes. And then I actually started at NI in August of 2019. So I've been at NI now for 7 years.
Now that's, obviously we in our last interview, we talked about the acquisition and what that meant. So I'm not going to go there, but by Emerson. But in terms of, like that growth now, it's a totally different position for you.
Oh, yes.
And I'm guessing, you being who you are, you've treated it as something that you want to learn from and grow into, and maybe the next position, whatever that might be. But what are the things you've learned from this? And I guess managing people, all the different divisions, moving into the world of like fast-moving semiconductor industry as well. Mm-hmm. What are the things that you've learned, and what things excite you?
Yeah, I think the thing about NI that I love is we have 30,000 customers. We're in every single industry known to man. I spent all my time in semiconductor. I came here, suddenly I'm learning about aerospace defense, I'm learning about transportation, I'm learning about energy, of course, semiconductor, electronics test. So just the variety of our customers, the types of, because we run a platform-based company,
yes,
the kinds of solutions that we have to create that are easy for these customers to take and get products to market. That was very different than anything I've done. The diversity of the applications, the size of the customer, we go from $1,000 customers up to much, much bigger kinds of customers. Right. Just the breadth of the engineering that's being done, that was very different than anything I've done. I started at NI running the semiconductor business unit, and so that was about 200 people at that time, right, which was smaller than things I had done before that. And that role, or my role, kept expanding until 2.5 years ago, I took over all of NI. Is that because you were
being pushed or encouraged, or you just enjoyed doing it?
Well, no, it was the same kind of thing where it's well, here, now take this. Well, now here you can take this. And so by the time the acquisition was happening, I was running the global business units. They'd given me a big chunk of R&D. I had all the applications engineers. I got the business development. And I was going through a huge transformation at the time. Right. I was going from a product, kind of product-centric company to a product and solution-centric company. And so that transformation that the company needed to go through, I had a unique set of skills just from my entire background. Right. The company ran mostly like a startup. It was a 45-year-old startup. So putting some of the processes, some of the operational pieces in place, right, putting some structure around the interlocks with the functions, has been a lot of the work that I've been doing. And so when I took over 2.5 years ago, it didn't feel like, oh, I really have to stretch. It was more, how do I take this company of incredibly talented, smart engineers with really cool technology and put that all together and again, get this out into the market.
Yeah.
And so doing that at scale in all the industries we're in, with all the customers we have, with all the products that we have, with the diversity of the portfolio. Again, we're selling, call it, $1,000 data acquisition cards up to semiconductor test equipment.
Right.
There's just, it's the most diverse sort of every kind of problem that you could have, which for someone like me is great.
That's great. Now, you're a very busy lady. Every occasion I've tried to get you, your time limited. So I want to ask you 2 questions before we finish. The first one is, in terms of your what are your interests, your extracurricular activities, including the mentoring, but what are your hobbies? What do you like? And then I'll get to the second one in a second. So.
Okay. I don't have a lot of free time, as you said. I love spending time with my family. So I have 2 children. We're a very, very close family. So spending a lot of time with them. I like watching movies when I'm able to sit. I mean, probably my favorite thing is at the end of the week, just sitting on my couch, turning on some kind of a series or a movie, and just sort of getting
What's your
lost
favorite
in
movie?
that. It's mostly Bollywood movies. I watch a lot of Hindi movies.
So have you watched the latest ones?
I have to think about what the latest one I saw, but I do think that one was on a plane. I just finished watching Shrinking, which was a series. I watched Diplomat over the Christmas holiday.
Good. Yeah.
Just went and saw, Michael and Devil Wears Prada. Yeah. So I enjoy movies. Yeah. Love to
We
hike.
share that interest, by the way.
Oh, good. Yeah. That's good. Love to exercise and hike. So I do a lot of walking. That I have a home in California, and you were somewhere close by my house.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of walking trails and a lot of just hiking. Yeah. I love to do yoga. Love to kind of run on the elliptical. So a lot of exercise.
And yeah, I mean, not the last. Yeah, not the last, but the second part of that is a lot of what you've said. You've been mentoring. What kind of, you get a lot of pleasure out of mentoring, I guess, but are there any things that, really make you feel, that's really good, when you've helped somebody or you've any examples of things? I mean, you don't have to mention names or anything like that. But.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that will come to me for kind of coaching and mentoring. I think the thing that gives me the most happiness is being able to give back. And it's, there's a lot of people at National Instruments that I've done a lot of, you could go this way or you could think about these things this way. Probably the thing that gives me the most inspiration is helping young women as they're getting into their careers. Because I find even today, women will still be a little perfectionistic, pretty hard on themselves, at least the women that I work with. Yeah. And there's a lot of this, sort of insecurity. And so trying to help them with, find your voice. This is the way that you could do it. Here's some encouragement.
Help them to prove themselves, I guess.
That's correct. Yeah. And that they have the capability. They just need a little bit of no, you're actually doing a really good job. Yeah. Oh, really? You think I'm doing a good job? Yes, I think you're doing a great job. Yeah. And so that I enjoy. I do that with my daughter. I do that with a lot of people at NI. I end up meeting a lot of kids in college. Right. So I enjoy that.
That's good. Final question I ask all my guests on this series. What would you tell young Ritu? I think young Ritu already knew what she wanted to do. But if you were knowing what you know now, what would be your advice to young people trying to tread your path?
I think the thing that I've thought is I was also pretty hard on myself and was always pushing. It would have probably been do that, but just have a little fun while you're also doing that. I was 19, had kids at 27. It was a very, very accelerated growing up. And so I probably would have said, it is okay to take a weekend off. It's okay to have a little bit of fun.
You had that Indian background. And
yes.
Indian, I know because I obviously share that heritage.
Yes.
Is they really drive you a lot.
Yes.
And
yes.
There's a lot of expectation.
Yes, and there remains still expectations.
Well, Ritu, it's been fun talking to you, and I know you have to leave. So thank you, and thank you for watching.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
Thank you.